Hi guys, and welcome back to our next lesson in concepts of region. In this lesson, we're going to be focusing on our region of industrial decline, the Sambre-Meuse Valley, and maybe potentially having a quick glance at Cork City towards the end of this lesson. However, you do, in the last number of years, only need to look at one region of industrial decline. Now, the questions we're going to be focusing on, you're going to find on page number 43 of your notes. As here, we're going to be focusing on this 2022 and 2015 question also. And again, in both of them questions, you were given the option to do a region or regions. So we're going to focus in on doing one region and doing it really well. So let's get started. Let's dissect our question. In 2022, the examiner said, examine the causes and impacts of industrial decline with reference to a region or regions that you have studied. This is a regional geography question, which means it can appear as part of questions number 4, 5 and 6 in my Leaving Cert exam. It's worth 30 marks, and 30 marks to me is 15 minutes of my time, and it requires 15 significant relevant points at 2 marks each. 15 SRPs at 2 marks each. Now in 2022, when I was there for the marking conferences, the examiner was giving out a lot of very quick and easy marks. The reason for this is students will struggle with a question like this. It's one that you need to know going in. It's not one you can make up on the spot or kind of, you need to know it specifically. Now, it says examine the causes. We're going to highlight the word causes, circle the S. Highlight the word impacts, circle the S. Of industrial decline, with reference to a region or regions that you have studied. Now, as I said, we are given the option, and normally I'd go for more than one, but because this has only appeared twice on the Leaving Cert exam, we're going to focus in on one, and we'll have a quick glance. I'll talk you through the second. Now, starting at the end of this question, what is my region of industrial decline? My region of industrial decline is the Sambre-Meuse Valley. The Sambre-Meuse Valley is located in Wallonia in southern Belgium. So I'm going to pop in Belgium towards the end. Now, as you'll know already, in regional geography, we don't draw label diagrams, but instead, what we can do here is we can draw our sketch map. Our sketch map should be found around page number 11 in our notes. And for that labelled sketch map and naming the Sambre-Meuse Valley, I'll get a tick and 2 marks, a tick and 2 marks, bringing me straight away up as far as 4 marks in this essay. Now let's go back. That is my region of industrial decline, and I know I'm going to be drawing a sketch map. But they're asking me what the causes of industrial decline are and what the impacts of industrial decline. Now, I'm going to keep this quite short. They do need to be slightly a little bit longer in an explanation to get your marks, but I'll talk you through this. The causes of industrial decline. Again, they're asking for more than one, so let's give 2. We will give more than 2 in the actual essay itself. The cause of industrial decline could include the depletion of the Sambre-Meuse Valley is very famous coalfields. It's an extension of the Nordic coalfields in France, so the depletion of coal. The second one would be competition. Competition from cheaper competitors. Competition from cheaper competitors. Now, if you state depletion of natural or depletion of coal, you will get a tick and 2 marks, and competition from competitors, a tick and 2 marks. What are the impacts? The impacts of industrial decline. Now, there's a lot of different impacts we can have, but here's just 2. Visible scars on the landscape could be 1, but easy ones to remember would be outward migration, and high unemployment. High unemployment rates or high unemployment. Both of them are impacts of industrial decline. People lose their jobs, so there's a high unemployment rates, tick and 2 marks, particularly in this era around with the male population, and as a result, there's a lot of outward migration, tick and 2 marks. I got 2, 4, 6, 8, 10, 12 marks out of 30 just for my dissection here. Now this, as I said, this essay, it's either one you're going to know or you're not going to know. Guys, we are going to know it. We've seen it in 2015. We've seen it in 2022. Will we see it again soon? It's a good question. So let's jump across to the far board and let's get started with the essay itself. Now, over on page number 46, you're going to find your table where we're going to break this essay down into bite-sized chunks. Now, guys, remember, this is a difficult essay, so we need to break it down nice and simply. We're going to go every 3 sections, we're going to take a break, and we're going to get down that key information. So, where I'm going to get you to go as far as now is over as far as page number 44 in the notes, and we're going to get started. We're going to tick off them ticks and 2 marks. You're going to see how quick and easy you're going to rack up the marks in this particular question. So getting started with our essay on page 44. So first of all, here you're going to see along the left-hand side of the page, I've already split up this essay. We're going to start off here by giving on the top of the page, the Sambre-Meuse Valley, a tick and 2 marks. This is our locational example of a region of industrial decline. Starting off with our first paragraph here, we're going to focus on the location of the Sambre-Meuse Valley. Now, the Sambre-Meuse Valley is, highlight the word, located. It's located in southern Belgium. It's located in southern Belgium in the province of, highlight for me, Wallonia. You'll recognise Wallonia because Wallonia and Flanders we would have spoke about as our language region in our cultural regions essay. The Sambre-Meuse Valley, at highlight the word, stretches over 150 kilometres. It stretches over 150 kilometres from the border of France to Leek. It is a, highlight the words, extension. It's an extension of the highlight North Coalfields in northern France. 3 things there to remember. Number 1, Wallonia, southern Belgium. Number 2, stretches 150 kilometres. And number 3, extension of the North Coalfields. Our next paragraph is going to discuss the Industrial Revolution. It was during the Industrial Revolution where Wallonia, southern Belgium, and the Sambre-Meuse Valley kind of took off as such. It's the time when basically they became a very prosperous area. Why? Coal. They had an energy resource that others didn't. So heavy industries flocked to that region because that energy resource, coal, provided power and allowed them to operate. You always want to have a heavy industry beside its energy source, whether they're going to use geothermal energy, whatever it is nowadays. But you want to be beside it because heavy industries carrying things, you don't want to be doing that. So during the Industrial Revolution of the highlight for me, Industrial Revolution and highlight 19th century. The 19th century or 1880s onwards. Let's highlight Industrial Revolution and let's highlight 19th century. The Sambre-Meuse Valley was an industrial, highlight the word, core region. An industrial core region in Belgium. Coal was in plentiful supply in the area and it powered, highlight, heavy industries. It powered new heavy industries such as iron, steel, chemical, engineering in the region. That's why it prospered. So what about workers? Our next paragraph. Coal exerted an extensive, highlight the words, pull factor throughout the region. Not only with multinational companies or industries, heavy industries, but also with people. The development of heavy industries, highlight the word heavy industries, resulted in large-scale inward migration. Highlighting the words large-scale inward migration. Now that's inward migration from areas like Flanders that wasn't just as developed at the time. As people moved to this area in search of work. At its peak, there was 120 mines and 120,000 workers. Let's highlight them 2 figures. Now, let's take a second, think what we have. Let's come across over as far as our table over on page number 46, and let's break this up for ourselves. So on our table, what do we have? You're going to pop in these first 3 words. You'll see your little symbols there. I've done my best to draw them. Let's start off here with our location. So the Sambre-Meuse Valley is located where? In the province of Wallonia, in southern Belgium. Number 1, 3 facts here about its location. Secondly, what do we know? It stretches 150 kilometres from northern France to Leek. And thirdly and finally here, what is it an extension of? It's an extension of what? It's an extension of the North coalfields. The North coalfields of France. A lovely little SRP got straight away just for my location. And remember that starting off, Sambre-Meuse Valley got a tick and 2 marks straight away. Industrial Revolution. Well, first of all, when was the Industrial Revolution? It was the 19th century. Again, you're writing in full. I might slightly abbreviate along the way. The 19th century or 1880s onwards. You can say either, you can say both. It's entirely up to yourself. Now, what happened during this period of time? Well, what was in the region? Coal. Coal in the region was in plentiful supply. And that coal attracted. This coal here attracted heavy industries. Heavy industries like steel companies, iron, chemical, so on and so forth. Workers. Now, in relation to workers, what do we want to say? Well, there was a pull factor. Workers were attracted to this region, so because of coal, there was a lot of inward migration. At its peak, 2 lovely little figures in here. At its peak, there was 120 mines, and there was 120,000 employees. Employees or workers would be a nice way to say that also. So 3 sections, three sections, couple of sentences here, and approximately 4 SRPs as far as there. The Sambre-Meuse Valley. The Sambre-Meuse Valley is located in Wallonia, in the southern province of Wallonia, in southern Belgium. I could just say province of Wallonia. It is it stretches 150 kilometers, extending from northern France to League. It is an extension of the North coalfields in France. Done. Tick and 2. Industrial Revolution. The Industrial Revolution of the 19th century, 1880s onwards. Well, in the Sambre-Meuse Valley, it became a core industrial region at that point. Because of the plentiful supply of coal, this attracted heavy industries like iron, steel, chemical to the region. Workers. Not only did coal attract heavy industries, but it also exerted a major pull factor for people into the region. There was a huge amount of inward migration as people came to the region in search of work. At its peak, there was 120 mines and 120,000 employees or workers. 1, 2, 3, each of them should be getting an SRP for you. Now, next we're going to come back into what the question really is asking. One of the main points. What is the causes of industrial decline? Come back to the question. Let's look. They are asking us here, what is the causes? This is what we're going to now address. The cause of industrial decline. Now, continuing on over on page number 44 for you guys. We're going to come into our section, as you'll see here, about our causes, what happened to coal. So let's get started. Now, from the 1950s, and I want you to highlight 1950s onwards, coal production declined. Why? Well, as you know already, coal is a highlight the word finite. It's a finite resource. Now, when I say finite resource, what am I actually talking about? I mean that coal isn't going to last forever. You know, if you have a house and you have a fireplace in your house, if you throw a piece of coal in, you set it alight, what happens to it? It disintegrates. It disappears. Well, that means it's not lasting forever. Something like hydroelectric power, HEP, solar energy, they are renewable resources. They are infinite. Coal, oil, gas are finite. Once they are gone, they are gone. Coal is a finite resource, and many of the coal seams became, highlight for me, exhausted after over 150 years of overuse. They weren't being used sustainably. This, alongside the increasing cost of production, highlight the words increasing cost of production, help release the grip that this area exerted on industrial locations. So basically we're saying here, the grip was released, the coal was gone, these heavy industries had no other reason to be there. They'd used them coal years for 150 years and they hadn't used them sustainably, so they were running out. Deindustrialization, highlight the word deindustrialization, which is the large-scale decline of industrial bases, occurred in the region, as heavy industries in the Sambre-Meuse Valley now face this increasing cost if they wanted to import coal. But they didn't. Many of them moved to, highlight the word, move their industrial locations. Apologies, it's actually a little bit further on, different part. The coalfields regions experienced industrial decline. Now, most of them industries, and I will say this to you now, most of them industries didn't actually stay there. They moved to waterside locations because, again, it's cheaper to transport on water than it is on land. And if you're not beside that coal, your energy source, you know, it's going to be expensive to get it there. This was due to a number of, highlight the word, factors. Depletion of coal resources. The amount of coal was reduced. Now, you know yourself, your examiner is giving you a tick and 2 marks the first time you give them a cause. There is our first cause. Second one, competition from cheaper imported coal, particularly from Poland and North America. My second reason in here, give it a tick and 2 marks. 4 marks, 1% just for them 2 particular bullet points. There was alternative sources of energy also, such as oil and gas now available. Many heavy industries now, highlight the words, relocated to waterside locations. The number of jobs were also reduced due to, highlight, new technologies. New technologies taking over them jobs. In 1984, the final coal year in the Sambre-Meuse Valley was shut. Highlight 1984 and highlight closed. Now, a lot of key information there, and we're racking up a lot of marks very quickly because of the marking scheme. Let's take it, let's come across, and let's break this up. Now, remember, as you're learning this, you're going section by section by section. The blue writing would be learned first. And again, this is what you're learning, not an essay off by heart. So the first of all here, let's start off with the coal itself. Well, from the 1950s onwards, what happened? The 1950s onwards, there was a decline. There was a decline in the amount of coal available. Now, coal, as we know ourselves, is a finite resource, which means it's not going to last forever. So because of what? Because of over 150 years of overuse. What happened was basically these coal mines were totally depleted. Now, as a result, deindustrialization occurred. And deindustrialization is the large-scale outward movement of industries. Now, deindustrialization occurred and it led to, there was causes, I should say, or factors which influenced this. Guys, I'm going to write down 1, 2, 3, 4. You can write it down in additional detail. I'm going to be very, very place this down very, very simply. The first one, depletion of coal. Now, if we're saying depletion of coal, it's spelled depletion wrong, but anyways, I'm not going to go back and change it. We're going to get a tick and 2 marks. That is one reason the coal resource was depleted. It was overused and it started to go. Second one, competition. Competition from cheaper competitors. Cheaper competitors, or you could say cheaper coal imports. There was cheaper coal available from North America and also from Poland, so a lot of the time that's what was being chosen. My third one here is alternative energy. Alternative energy sources. Energy sources like gas and oil were now becoming readily available and they were a lot easier to transport. As a result of that, a lot of industries moved to waterside locations because that's where you're going to find them. Again, they're piped in. New technology was the last one. New technology, very, very last one there, that took over jobs. It made things a little bit faster as well, which means the coal was being depleted a little bit more. That new tech also was the reason oil and gas became a lot more popular. Now, here you'll see we have our causes. I know I have it labeled factors. This is the cause overall of why there was why it's a region of industrial decline. Don't know why I'm struggling with so much with that particular sentence today. Now, that's our cause done. What's the next thing our examiner asks us about? Well, the next thing our examiner asks us about after our causes is our impacts. Let's look at the impacts of industrial decline in the Sambre-Meuse Valley next. So on page 45 next, we're moving on to our impacts, as we said. Now, impacts, we're going to do impacts and then we'll take a quick glance at our strategies towards the end here. So impacts is going to be split into 3 and each one of these impacts is going to get a tick and 2 marks. Just get that jotted in there for yourself. There's 3 subheadings, nice and simple, nice and straightforward. Nothing overly complicated here, maybe 1 or 2 figures. Our first problem, the main problems or impacts of the industrial decline in this region included. Our first one was visible scars on the landscape. The area didn't look too hectic afterwards, and that's not going to attract any new multinational companies or industries in. Abandoned collieries, overgrown slag heaps, derelict factories, and poor infrastructure were the telltale signs of a once industrial area. Such environments are, highlight that key word, unattractive to new investment. You don't go into an area like that and go, oh God, I'd love my industry and my employees to come here. You just don't. The second one was high unemployment rates. The region was devastated by high unemployment rates, over 20%, highlight over 20%. Predominantly among the male population, highlight the words male. Now, the reason it was obviously predominantly among the male population, we're back here, in the 1950s. Prior to that, I suppose, really is the best way to say that. Earlier than that, it was predominantly men that was working, and particularly in these heavy industries. Between 1960 and 1973, 50,000 jobs were lost in the region. Pop them a little highlight over them figures. My last one here is migration, or if you want to pop the word outward migration, you can, but I think that's fairly clear. The loss of employment and low living standard caused a decline in the population, as people highlight the word migrated to growing centres in the north, such as Antwerp in Flanders. As a result, Flanders became a new growth region and the economic core of Belgium. As you'll remember back from our language regions, it became an economic core. There was a lot of new growth industries like pharmaceutical and tech industries that moved in there after the 1950s. Now, let's take what we have and let's break this up very simply before looking at our strategies. So, on our table, what do we have for our impacts? Well, our biggest impact here is obviously it closed. You'll actually see the little close symbol there. It closed in 1984. The Sambre-Meuse Valley closed in 1984, and that meant everybody at this point had lost their job. The impacts, we have 3. 1, 2, 3. Again, I'm keeping these nice and simple because I know you can explain this. First one was visual scars on landscape. What did we describe? The overgrown slag heaps, the derelict factories, all of this, the overgrown slag heaps, abandoned collieries, derelict factories were all the telltale signs of a once industrial area. This is unattractive to new investment. My second one here. The second one is high unemployment. High unemployment rates. Approximately 20% and predominantly males. A lot of these males lost their jobs after the coalfields closed, or actually before the coalfields closed, and at its peak it was about a 20% unemployment rate. Our last one, outward migration. Outward migration as people went in search of better jobs, a better living standard, and one of the places they went to was Flanders. Flanders was a new growth centre. Again, that's your northern Belgium, new growth centre, and again, they speak Flemish, a variation of Dutch there. Now, strategies is the very, very last one that we need to look at. But before I do, I want to give a tick and 2 marks to my first 2 impacts. Again, nice and clear, nice and straightforward, a lovely marking scheme. If you want, you can stop your essay here, but we're going to have a quick look at strategies, just keeping it very, very simple, nothing overly complicated. Now, on the bottom of page number 45, if you want, you can give a little bracket around this here, because I'm only going to kind of scan through this section. This wouldn't be a section that, I know my figures, 1.05 billion, all that's fine, or 4 billion, I should say, not 5, and my, strategy they employ, but a lot of it's kind of very self-explanatory. The government and the EU, both, they've aided the revival of the Sambre-Meuse Valley. They've invested 1.04 billion in EU funding. Changes, what do they want? Highlight the words, clean up. They want the area to be cleaned up and become more attractive for industries to come in. They've created new industrial estates or built new industrial estates, again for these industries to be attracted to. They've done retraining schemes for workers, and they've improved the infrastructure. They even opened that airport at Charleroi. The result of this, has been positive, but it's still an Objective 2 region, which tells us it's underdeveloped. Let's take that little last part and let's pop that up, the least important part. So, strategies, first thing, money. 1.04 billion invested or funded. Challenges, what can we say in relation to challenges? Challenges, the first one here, changes, not challenges. Changes, you could say the cleanup, retraining, and also infrastructure. Infrastructure being improved. Nothing overly complicated there. You might even just go as far as there and that'll be perfect. Now guys, that is our region of industrial decline, the Sambre-Meuse Valley. Let's look back at the question. My question is over here. What did they ask me? They said examine the causes and the impacts of this region of industrial decline. Our region of industrial decline, Sambre-Meuse Valley, we gave our causes, we gave our impacts. Now, I do want to point out to you, you can come over as far as in your notes, just 2 more pages to page number 47. And on page number 47, you're going to see a little section based on Cork. Now, you do not have to include this, but if the examiner decided to do this, which they actually did in 2015 but didn't want, take the brackets off that S, they may be forcing you to do a second region of industrial decline. So page number 47 will look like this. So let's quickly take a glance down through this. Now, I'm just going to tell you straight away, I'm jumping straight to that timeline. Here you're looking at Cork City. Cork City, we can split into a timeline of 4 parts as such. In the 1970s, 1973, Ireland joined the EU. When Ireland joined the EU, which at the time was not the EU, it was the EEC, that introduced us to the free movement of people and the free movement of goods. That was a really positive thing for Ireland, but Ireland didn't really experience an industrial revolution. But it did mean that Irish people could get lower prices on goods abroad. In 1980, we hit one of our first recessions. Not the first, but one of the first. An industrial, or I should say a downturn in industry. So again, what happens during a recession? A lot of companies are going to close their plants. So a lot of companies close their plants in Cork. In 1985 in Cork in particular, there was deindustrialisation. Deindustrialisation, what moved out? Shipyard, Ford, and Dunlop. Ford Car Company, Dunlop is a tyre company, and Shipyard is to do with shipping. They moved out, they closed. They closed in the region. Next, you had the 1990s. 1990s, what we seen was the revival of Cork. A lot of new growth industries, like pharmaceutical and chemical plants. I'll move over slightly. Chemical plants opened in the region. In the 2000s, again, go down through each decade really as such, there was a recession again. However, now what you'll find is it's an education centre, tourism are all thriving in Cork. Little timeline on what happened in Cork. That, I would say, if you want to go through, you can go through. However, what's really important is what we've just done here, and more particularly over here on the Sambre-Meuse Valley. So guys, that there is your region of industrial decline. I hope you enjoyed it. That is the last of the essays you will find in Concepts of a Region.